Parkland College and the East Central Research Foundation have recently finished a forage termination study. The study was conducted on an old alfalfa brome stand located near Yorkton. There were two trials. The forage termination treatments were the same for each trial, but one trial was seeded to canola and the other to wheat. Roundup Transorb was used in this study, but other glyphosate products could also be effective. The first treatment was 0.66 liters per acre of Roundup Transorb sprayed pre-harvest on the forage on August 8, 2014. So this was sprayed the summer prior to seeding the wheat and canola crops. The rest of the treatments were applied in the year the crop was being seeded. All involved the application of Roundup Transorb sprayed on May 19th. And we looked at a high rate, 1.33 liters per acre, and compared that to a lower rate of 0.66 liters per acre. A high rate was also looked at, followed by cultivation, and the cultivation involved multiple passes. It's not easy to cultivate out a forage in spring. After a few days, canola and wheat were then seeded on May 25th, 2015. So as I mentioned, the pre-harvest treatment was applied on August 8th in the year prior to seeding the crops. The farmer didn't harvest the field until September 14th, but by September 23rd, you can definitely see the forage looks dead. In the spring of the following year, the pre-harvest treatment still looked pretty dead. This picture was taken the day after seeding on May 26. As you can see, the odd alfalfa plant is greening up, but there's really no sign of any brome regrowth. The alfalfa was not much of a concern to me, as I knew I could control it in crop in either canola or wheat. By June 3rd, the brome had regrown. This was a problem for the wheat, as there is nothing registered for the control of smooth brome in cereals. I tried Simplicity, as it has Japanese brome and downy brome on its label, but it didn't work. The emerging smooth brome was not a problem in the canola, as it was effectively controlled in crop with glyphosate. By June 18, the canola had emerged in the pre-harvest treatment, and it looked like this. In contrast, the spring glyphosate treatments looked like this. They had provided good kill of the forage, but where was the canola? It was there, but it hadn't germinated yet. The seed was sitting in dry soil. Very little rain had fallen in the spring, and the soil moisture reserves for these treatments had been used up by allowing the forage to regrow before we terminated it. You see, in order to spray the forage out in spring, you have to give it enough time to regrow. If you spray it out too soon, the control will be greatly reduced. That may be one of the reasons the results from spring forage termination can be quite variable. The canola managed to emerge in the pre-harvest treatment because it had greater soil moisture reserves. It's because nothing had been growing in this treatment since August of the preceding year. The canola had also managed to emerge in the spring Roundup plus cultivation treatment, despite the fact that the spring forage was still using up moisture in this treatment. I think this treatment did well because the packer wheels on the seed hawk worked properly in the cultivated soil. You see, they're 3 to 4 inches wide, and they didn't pack properly in the sod seeding situation. I suppose the cultivation may have also brought moisture closer to the surface, which also would have helped with germination. So in summary, neither the canola or the wheat had emerged by this time, in the treatment only receiving spring glyphosate. Now let's jump ahead to September 2nd and compare the final yield results. As you can see, treatment 1, which is the pre-harvest treatment from the year before, is a complete disaster in the wheat. It's completely overwhelmed by smooth brome because it couldn't be controlled with in-crop herbicides. It only yielded 7 bushels. In contrast, the pre-harvest treatment for the canola was the highest yielding. That's because the brome growth could be controlled in crop with Roundup. And it also benefited from the soil moisture reserves that were higher as a result of nothing being grown in this treatment since August of the previous year. I've since read that there may be more forage regrowth associated with an early season pre-harvest treatment in, say, July, for example. This regrowth may be controlled by another glyphosate application later in that same year or in the following spring. In contrast, if the pre-harvest is done late, say in early September, then regrowth is supposed to be minimal. This is considered to be the most effective timing. The pre-harvest timing in this experiment was August 8. It's right in the middle. It's neither early or late. This timing of pre-harvest glyphosate may have been responsible for the problematic timing of the brome regrowth. The regrowth didn't emerge early enough to be sprayed out pre-seed. It started to emerge just after the crop was seeded. Again, this was only a problem for the wheat, due to a lack of in-crop herbicide options. Now technically I could have seeded the wheat earlier in this treatment, but that brome still would have been a problem in that crop. Treatment 2, which is a spring application of Roundup Transorb at 1.33 liters per acre, resulted in the lowest yield for canola. This is because we had to allow the brome to regrow before it could be effectively sprayed out. Again, the brome regrowth used up precious soil moisture, delaying germination and maturity. However, the brome regrowth in this treatment was quite late and did not badly affect the yield potential of wheat. In fact, this treatment resulted in the highest wheat yield. Reducing the spring application of Roundup Transorb down from 1.33 to 0.66 liters per acre did not reduce brome control or decrease yield in either canola or wheat. Treatment 4, which looked at spring application of 1.33 liters per acre of Roundup, followed by multiple passes of cultivation, improved canola yields. I attribute this to the earlier emergence of the canola. This treatment also resulted in earlier emergence of the wheat, but in contrast reduced the yield of wheat. I'm not sure why. Perhaps the earlier emerging wheat was less able than canola to compensate for the early season drought we were experiencing. In other words, maybe its yield potential was fixed by the early drought. It's also possible that the brome growth was heavier in this treatment. So what would I do based on what I've read and what I've seen from this trial? Well, I'd spray the year before. Either a late pre-harvest or a fall treatment where the hay has not been cut since mid-July. I'd go with 1 to 1.33 liters per acre of Roundup Transorb or some equivalent rate in another glyphosate. This will provide time to mellow the seed bed and accumulate soil moisture reserves. It also provides the best forage termination, and I have not given up forage production that would result from using glyphosate all year long or cultivation. I wouldn't cultivate in spring unless my seeder is not appropriate to seed into the sod, and unless there's some leveling issues as well. I'd go with Roundup canola. Having an in-crop herbicide option to control unexpected brome regrowth can really make a difference. Now, I recognize there's a risk to this, as cereals may handle a poor seed bed and low moisture conditions better. But if the seed bed is decent and the soil moisture is there, I'd definitely go with the Roundup canola option.